So, hi. It's February 1st, so let's talk about everything I read in January. So, I read 7 books. This was actually a great reading month. Normally the new year starts out slow for me, but thankfully everything that I read was really great. So let's start with my favorite book of this whole year, The Glutton by A.K. Blakemore. I love this book. This book follows Terr, who's kind of like a fictionalized version of like a real person. Honestly, should I have done the research on the true story? Yes. Did I? No. So I can't really say how much of this is true or just based loosely on reality. I'm so sad because I just realized that this is fucking messed up. But yeah, this book is so, like, it's so beautifully written, and there's so much disgusting depravity, cannibalism, just actions that are grotesque in nature, and it still manages to be beautiful and terrible all at the same time. I think it kind of also gives insight to the French Revolution to an extent, and like the poverty that people were living in, just these walks to Paris, like people dropping dead. It was just fucking crazy. It takes you on the odyssey of this man's life, and he is a tragic hero in my eyes. Like, did he eat a child? Maybe. But he deserves so much better, and I feel like his body was corrupted, but his soul wasn't. And even though he did some reprehensible things, I still like don't blame him, or at least completely. I feel like Terr was somebody who was taken advantage of his entire life, his entire childhood, and it breaks my heart. And the abuse that he endured from his stepfather really hurt me to read, because I think ever since then he was always seeking love and shelter and comfort from people or from places, and like he finally reached the point at the end of this where he could never have those things, and he finally realized he would never be able to be happy. So next, I'm embarrassed to turn this around because of how disgusting it looks. It's Invisible Cities by Italo Calvino. And I got this not even at Half Price Books. I just remembered I got this from one of those like free libraries, like leave a book, take a book. And here is my teacup stain. Yeah. Did I enjoy reading this? Yes. Would I ever read it again? No. Because this was just one of those books that's so pleasant to read. It's enchanting and magical, and like you're reading about all of these different cities, and like there are real gems in here, just language wise. It's just beautiful, but like it ended up being kind of redundant, I feel like, and I wasn't really interested near the end, but I still finished it out because there were beautiful phrases on every single page. And also, what is it? Kublai Khan and young Marco Polo, like, I know they were zooted. Like, then the hypothesis must be rejected. So the other hypothesis is true. They exist and we do not. We have proved that if we were here, we would not be. And here, in fact, we are. I'm like, huh? Like, is it one city? Is it multiple cities? Did Marco Polo even go to these cities? Like, what are y'all talking about? Yeah, I know that my empire is made of the stuff of crystals, its molecules arranged in a perfect pattern. Amid the surge of the elements, a splendid hard diamond takes shape, an immense, faceted, transparent mountain. Why do your travel impressions stop at disappointing appearances, never catching this implacable process? Why do you linger over inessential melancholies? Why do you hide from the emperor the grandeur of his destiny? And Marco answered, I'm like, I wasn't going to read all this, but I have to. And Marco answered, while at a sign from you, sire, the unique and final city raises its stainless walls, I am collecting the ashes of the other possible cities that vanished to make room for it, cities that can never be rebuilt or remembered. When you know at last the residue of unhappiness for which no precious stone can compensate, you will be able to calculate the exact number of carats toward which that final diamond must strive. Otherwise, your calculations will be mistaken from the very start. Like, so this was great, but at the same time, it was just okay. Next, I gave this 5 stars, and I did not expect to give this 5 stars, but I really, really loved it. It's Motherless Brooklyn by Jonathan Lethem. I actually saw the movie for this, and it is nothing like the book. Like, they just took the characters, took the general premise, and completely changed the context, changed the time period, changed their personalities, changed everything. And I mean, it was fine, but it was not anything comparable to this book. Yeah, this is just a great, compelling detective novel, like whodunit type of deal, but the narrator has Tourette's. I feel like I learned so much about Tourette's that I didn't know before just by reading this. Also, after reading this, which I'll talk about in a little bit, I think that even the title Motherless Brooklyn like resonates so much with my understanding of Jonathan Lethem's family life and his relationship with his mother and her passing. But there were beautiful, beautiful things in this book, and beautiful relationships, love, loss, everything. And it was just entertaining. Like, I read it in 1 or 2 days. I couldn't put it down, and it was just perfect. And this paperback is beautiful. I didn't really appreciate it until I was reading it. And next is Lucky Jim by Kingsley Ami. I don't know. I would say, like, I loved this, and I did love it, but I mainly loved the characters, but the story kind of fell somewhat flat for me. Mainly because I think there's just so much that you have to get through to get to the, like, what you would assume is the climax, but it feels so anticlimactic. But it's still funny. I mean, the book literally ends with Lucky Jim busting out laughing. It's like all of these absurd things, and you're thinking like, oh my god, like, I'm so embarrassed, I'm cringing reading this, like, how can he even live? And then you get to the end and you kind of see, like, you can embarrass yourself as much as you want. Like, you're gonna be so much happier when you're no longer surrounded by people that you find annoying as fuck, which is basically what happens. He gets the girl. He says goodbye to all of these pretentious douchebags that he hates, and he's having a great time and laughing. So overall, I liked it, but what I love most of all is just this book. Like, I need some more New York Review books immediately, because these pages are so soft. Like, these are incredibly soft. I love the margins. I love the pops of color. I just love this cover too. So yeah. Then I read Fight Club. Actually, I don't have it. I got it from the library. And I had just rewatched the movie, and I already kind of like knew the gist. But when I started to read the book, I felt like, wow, this kind of reminds me of like a Bret Easton Ellis type story. There's kind of confusion, and it's unclear if you're reading a reliable narrator or not, like what is going on. And most of all, I just really connected with all of Tyler Durden's beliefs and his calls for anarchy. Like, we need that. I won't elaborate further. If anybody's seen the new season of Rick and Morty, the Night Family episode, that's essentially what Fight Club is. Like, the film did a great job of capturing the story that's presented to you in the book, and then the book, its ability to create that split persona and kind of keep up that facade for a like good amount of chapters, and make it very clear like what it is that you're reading once you understand that these two men are the same person, is just brilliantly done. And then the fact that this book started off as just one chapter, as if it were just a short story, chapter 6, when you only read that chapter and imagine it as like being the entire world that the story is contained in, and you don't think about anything else that you've been reading in the book, like, it still has that same effect, and it's still moving and just really fascinating and great. So I liked that way more than I thought I would. Then I read King Queen Knave by Nabokov, and like when I was reading this, it felt like I was reading this, because it's kind of the same premise where like this guy with glasses is fucking on somebody's significant other, and here it's his uncle's wife, and in here it's like his professor's son's girlfriend. So it's kind of different, only this takes it kind of more in the Evelyn Waugh, like Handful of Dust, Anna Karenina space, where like murder is involved and like true hatred and like strong emotions for the odd one out in the relationship trio. I was kind of underwhelmed by this. I thought it was going to take like a murderous turn or something, and it kind of starts to take that turn, and then it ends so unexpectedly. And even though, you know, it's Nabokov, so it's beautifully, wonderfully written, I can't say I would want to read it again, nor would I really recommend it as like a great, mind-blowing story. Like, it was just overall a decent read. And then last, I read The Disappointment Artist by Jonathan Lethem. This is somebody expressing like what their life is like and what their childhood was like, and how personal curation of art to kind of inform who... Let me start over, because that didn't make any sense. I'm gonna start over one more time. So I enjoyed this much more than I thought I would, considering I'm not really familiar with a lot of the things that he references, but I think it is so honest and touching. Like, one of the main themes in this is like a personal curation and collection of art. Like, Jonathan was somebody who identified so strongly with music, with film, with books, that you kind of see how those strong bonds to these things formed out of a lack of connection with his own family, because his mother passed away and he didn't want to be a child. At 16 or 15, he was doing everything he could to just identify with adults, be an adult, and he thought, if I just submerge myself in all of this media that I love and surround myself with adults that treat me as an adult, then I basically skipped childhood and I don't need family and I don't need anybody. And he captures that so heartbreakingly well in all of these essays, and each one is interesting in its own right. And I feel like I understand this person I've never met and will never meet a little bit more. Those are the books that I read in January. So hopefully February is as good to me as January was, because I really enjoyed pretty much everything that I read. Even if it's something that I say is objectively kind of mid, like this, or like this, or even like this, it was still super enjoyable to read. So that's all.